Hello there and welcome back to Talk Oxford. Joining me on the sofa tonight we have Maureen, a nutritional therapist practising in Summertown, and we have Oxfordshire Celiac Group with us as well. So thank you both very much for joining me. And before the break we were discussing dieting and all things celiac and eating healthily when you're a teenager and how important it is when you're growing up. And with us, you've both brought lots of lovely visual food. And so I think it's about time we had a little nibble on some.
Please do.
Help yourself, Alex.
Well, I think we've all got to take a dip. So can you tell me what this all is, Maureen?
Well, I don't need to introduce those. You probably recognise.
Oh, yeah, I'm very good at my fruit and veg. Okay. Have my 5 a day.
This is hummus, but it's a bright yellow colour because it's got a lot of turmeric in, which is has lots of health benefits, particularly anti-inflammatory and boosting the immune system, and it's got pomegranates in.
Oh, very exciting!
Strong, powerful antioxidants. This is guacamole, but because I'm quite keen on eating and recommending that others eat protein with every meal and snack, it's got hard-boiled eggs grated into it.
Oh, that's exciting!
So it's not just vegetables.
Yeah.
But it's mostly mashed avocado, a few chopped up tomatoes and onions, garlic, lime.
Lovely. Well, I'm going to take a dip into...
And these are corn chips, and the blue ones are, well, they're referred to as blue corn. They don't look blue, but they come from the state of New Mexico. It's the only place it's grown, and they are a really good form of corn.
That's lovely. I mean, I am a fan of avocado, so...
Good.
This one, please.
And hummus, of course, is made with chickpeas.
I can get some on
And so what are the key sort of health benefits of guacamole? Because obviously some people sort of criticise it for being quite unhealthy and fatty, but is it sort of...
There's been a misconception for many, many years, and I think one of the topics we're going to come and talk about is, why do the media keep changing their message? But fat, when it's naturally occurring, is not unhealthy. It is extremely healthy. And the sort of fat that you get in avocado is very, very healthy. It's also loaded with vitamin E. And, it's a natural vegetable. Or actually, technically it's a fruit, although we see it as a vegetable.
Oh, gosh.
But it's very healthy.
Yeah. But before, we were just discussing how... that lactose intolerance is also linked to celiac disease, which I personally didn't know.
Autoimmune diseases, they can be a link to other autoimmune diseases like undirected thyroids or lactose intolerance.
And various skin conditions as well.
Dermatitis.
Often autoimmune. If there is an autoimmunity, it can manifest itself in a lot of different ways, some more strongly than others.
Yeah.
But I think, would you say this, Alison, that if somebody has, let's say, a celiac diagnosis, they may have, milder forms of some of the other autoimmune
Some of the
things
others,
well.
yeah. And that's how we found it's becoming a bit more common to have something else linked with your diagnosis at the same time. So it's important to visit your GP and make sure that you are healthy, because sometimes when you start following your gluten-free diet, you may not feel 100% okay immediately. It may take a few months to
may I tell you why you don't feel okay?
Oh, yes, do educate us. What goes on?
Well, when you cut out wheat, particularly wheat more than anything else, your body's going through what's called a healing crisis, and people actually might get flu-like symptoms because there are so many toxins in wheat. And actually, gluten is not the only harmful thing in wheat. It also contains opiates, which is why it's addictive. And when you cut it out, the body is releasing those toxins. Hopefully you're replacing it with a lot of healthier things. If you're buying the gluten-free straight off the shelf in the supermarket, it may not be that much healthier.
No.
It's not going to do the harm that gluten does, but you're swapping one harmful ingredient for maybe a few other chemicals.
Yeah, and before, we've got some vegetables here, and one of the questions I want to ask you before we get onto our topic of mixed media messages about dieting is, are we supposed to have 5 a day or 8 a day? This is what I want to know.
I say 10.
10?
I think as many as you can squeeze in.
I tell all my patients 10. And I also think that one of the bad things about that message of 5 a day is they always use the phrase fruit and vegetables. They use the word fruit first, and in fact vegetables are far more important.
Yeah, gosh, but I'm going to dip in. I love a bit of celery, so I'm going to try some of the hummus.
That's delicious.
Give me your opinion.
Lovely.
It's quite spicy.
That's lovely. Oh, I'm tempted to double dip, but I think that's a bit... we can't
We're all
do that.
friends.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's really delicious. If that's gluten-free, then I don't mind being celiac. But obviously, one of the sort of key issues with dieting is that people definitely do get these mixed messages. I mean, a recent article now says that skimmed milk isn't necessarily as healthy as semi-skimmed or full-fat milk.
Full fat is the only one that I recommend, if you're having milk at all.
Yeah, and if we've got all these different mixed messages coming from everybody, who are we supposed to believe, and how does this help us dieting?
I think the media, again, blows quite a lot of things out of proportion. I think if you actually dig a little bit deeper down into the story, you will notice that the facts have kind of been
Washed
But
over.
actually, there was just a few days ago, there was a media story that really, on the one hand, I was saying, oh my goodness, it's about time that they're admitting this. But on the other hand, they really did admit that it was based on flawed research, and that was to do with fat, cholesterol-containing foods causing heart disease. And this is something that nutritional therapists have been aware of, that is wrong for more than 2 decades, maybe 3 decades.
Yeah.
If a food contains cholesterol, such as eggs or liver or shellfish, that does not raise the cholesterol in the body at all. And actually, cholesterol isn't necessarily a cause of heart disease. But they've finally admitted it.
Yeah.
Just a few days ago.
So that's quite a good thing. And what about, I'm always confused, red meat? Is it good for you? It's full of iron. So people say, oh, well, if you're anemic or you're sort of feeling a bit under the weather, it's good to get iron in your body and have a big steak. I mean, what is...
Well, it depends on the provenance. I would recommend people to eat meat only if they can get hold of really good quality grass-fed animals.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, they're fed with grains, which is not helpful for celiac people. They're fed unnatural diets that cows and lambs, sheep mostly graze on grass anyway, but certainly cows, the beef, they should be just feeding on grass.
Yeah. And Alison, do you as well as staying away from wheat, do you have to then stay away from certain meats because they're fed corn?
No, I've not heard that we need to stay away from meat.
Oh, that's a revelation, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the diet is quite restrictive as it is, so it is important to include all the main food groups in your diet, making sure you get your main vitamins because you are excluding quite a lot of things anyway.
Yeah.
So making sure that you are absorbing your calcium, which is important for bone development and obviously in children growth, and making sure you get your vitamins inside you, such as your vegetables and your fruit. So it's a variety, everything in moderation.
Yeah, everything in moderation. Is that your motto to...
No.
At all. Well, we don't want to open that can of worms quite yet.
I would just say this, that I don't regard the diet as being restrictive because it's what I tell all my patients to do. I regard it as opening up all sorts of other possibilities of different foods which are more flavourful, more healthy, and they're not going to do the harm that wheat and other gluten products do. So it's an opportunity to become much more healthy, and I think on the whole celiac people are lucky in a way that they've got that opportunity, that they're forced more or less to avoid gluten, and mostly wheat, because it's in wheat more than any of the other grains. because there are all these other alternatives which are just so much better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it's time to move on to our next topic. So from food to marriage. So last week, Ireland voted in by popular vote to legalise gay marriage. And this has been, it's been seen by many as a breakthrough in equality. People, LGBT groups across the world are celebrating. But the church isn't so happy. The Vatican has put the Chief Vatican has backlashed and said it's an absolute disgrace for humanity and that it's not just Christians who are going to suffer, it is worldwide. And so let's have a little bit of a discussion. What do you think? Is it good that this has happened? Is it going to set the precedent for other countries? Or is it now going to make more people feel uneasy, religious groups, other minority groups, who feel that they're being undermined?
It's a difficult one. I personally think life is too short. Obviously, the tragedy last weekend in Didcot, life is too short. If it makes people happy, then I think it's important to be happy with somebody that you love. Marriage is a sacred thing. It's a commitment to a relationship, and I think that point's been missed.
Yeah, and I think
I absolutely agree with every word of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was quite interesting. Mary Portas recently, she was featured in an article, and she was going to have her son baptised in a Catholic church, and she pulled out because she felt uneasy after a Catholic priest revealed or implied his views on her same-sex relationship with another woman. And I sort of have two feelings about this. I sort of feel, well, should she have expected it, be it going to a Catholic church? I mean, should you just let them get on with it and maybe think, well, okay, I've had my child, it's great, but I'm not going to push in any further and sort of make upset anyone in a way. Or should she perhaps have gone through with it and said, well, I don't care what the priest says, I want my child to be baptised? I mean, do you think she was right in a way to back down?
I'll tell you what I think about that. I think it's far too much information. I think it's a very, very personal matter, and I don't think it should ever have got into the public domain. I think just because these people are, the people themselves are in the public domain, does not mean that we, the public, should be privy to all aspects of their private and personal life. And I do think that's very, very personal, and I think it's dreadful that it got out.
Yeah.
And again, it's a personal thing to bring your child in front of God, isn't it? God is God in all different forms and in different religions. So again, I agree.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, that'll lead us nicely into our next topic, because unfortunately we've got to go to a break now. But after the break, we'll be discussing the new Snoopers Act, which might become law. It was announced in the Queen's speech earlier this week. But join us after the break, where I'll be joined by Maureen and Alison for more wonderful discussion. Don't forget to tweet us at Talk Oxford and email us at talk@that'soxford.com.